What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit about getting out of unconscious complaining throughout the day and how important it is to stop doing that, because as you're really focusing your attention on the undesirable, well, what tends to happen is spiraling out and then experiencing more and more situations to complain about. Ultimately, the choice is: am I going to continue to spin out, double down on things to complain about, or can I actually spend the present moment being grateful for the many abundance of things to be grateful for when you actually stop and pay attention to those things? And so it's important as the day progresses, as the now unfolds, to look at whatever's going on within and really start to become mindful and the captain of your day and your life and your experience. It's either you're kind of drifting into unconscious patterns, or you're choosing to maybe be in a flow state for a while, maybe then drifting into what was something to be grateful for, and actually consciously choosing what you're thinking about versus, oh, I just experienced some external trigger and now I'm drifting in attack and fear and anxiety and low grade just concern and worry about the future, or maybe there's something going on in my body. Is like, oh, am I getting sick? Am I gonna fucking die? Is this it? Is this the big C? Is it oh, am I having a stroke? Is this a heart attack? Is this on my right side or my left side? It's starting to tingle, and then you start focusing on all this shit that just starts spinning out, all because something, who knows what's going on with the body. I mean, honestly, there's so many things that just could go wrong. It's a miracle that we're even existing now, really, when you stop and think about it. Just the amount of incredible organization of all these cells, micromanaging all of these services and just things to do constantly, replicating, dividing, maintaining, balance. All of this shit is so unbelievable when you really, the digestion's just happening, you're blinking, your eyes are hydrating themselves, your ears are vibrating on, your eardrums just vibrating, and somehow you can understand this because it's translated by some process into some region of your brain that does this very complex stuff going on. And when you stop to think about all of those things in the present moment, it's like, man, there's a lot going right at the present moment. It's like, and I get it, being like, not really in like a chronically like bedridden state. It might be like, well, Mike, you just don't get where I'm at. I don't have any hope and I can't fucking do shit. I'm just sick and, everything's just going wrong. There's people around me, not just undesirable situation. It's like, I get it. That manifests, especially when you're stuck in a state of consciousness that you're unconsciously just perpetuating these same thoughts, these same beliefs, these same assumptions, and I get it. It's like I had my hip issues, where it's just compounding. Now it's a back issue, it's that, and it was just this decay process. It just was like a slow death. If I was out in nature, I probably would have been dead years ago, if I had to hunt and survive like that, but like, again, you start to look at just your surroundings and all these things that are positively happening. Is both your parents alive, or is oh no, they're both dead? Oh, is your sibling alive? Is your favorite pet alive? What do you have that you can start to really build a strong memory, a strong feeling in the present moment, instead of dread, fear of loss. Oh, what if I lose that person? It's like, what if something bad happens to them and I'm stuck to deal with whatever situation unfolds? How do you want to spend the present moment? I mean, do you want to consciously think that? Do you want to consciously be worrying? Especially knowing that as you impress the subconscious mind with the thought, doesn't matter if good or bad, it's non-selective. It'll externalize that into form in your perception, so you'll be confronted with that like a big mirror, and probably walk in those undesirable situations, getting more and more embedded into that. So it's like, even to the person that's been in a chronic fucking state for a long time, it's like I said, my hip has been 25 years in the fucking making, but both sides. It's been a fucking ordeal. But you and I've like been tempted with like thoughts of oh, just do I give up and just let this decay process, it's like everybody is faced with those challenges of faith, but ultimately God is our healer, God is our supply for healing. And so a lot of what I believe, a lot of these chronic things, and I just, this is just going on within my own self, and the thoughts that I have when I'm confronted with shit going on in my own body, there's a tendency to either worry, that is, when it does go away, then there's this need to check on it. Oh, is it there? Oh, it's gone. And then there's like a fear of, like, there's some sort of fear of like loss, or it's like, oh, I'm going to get better, and then it's going to feel so good it's going to be then taken away. There's that kind of shit going on. There's also oh, this could just get more and more painful and loud and fucking just turn into a gigantic thing. There's that. But those are still the stuff that you're thinking about in the present moment. Thinking in terms of a state of being ill, a state of being having some chronic health condition. It's in putting on your identity in Christ and realizing that, yeah, the old you had all that shit going on that was just in that state, in the state where God's separate from you, and you're just alone to just get bombarded with all this external existential threats and attack, and there's everything's just random chaos and survival of the fittest and all of this shit, all this fear, all of this anxiety, and then experiencing that reflection, and it's like, this is a fucking terrifying place. This is like a hell realm at times, in that state of mind, in the mind of fear. But when you realize that you can transcend that identity, that mindset, that assumption that you're that things are like that, and really start to renew your mind into like the Word of God, for example, and realize that that God's in control of everything, that there's an order to creation, that the same curse is a blessing once you understand the law and grace, and and how this functions, and how there's this divine principle at work, where the kingdom of God being within, but then also reflects outward as you start to walk in the reality of that in the present moment. It's only ever now. So the more that you become more and more in a state of gratitude in the present moment, by realizing that you're not alone, that God is with you, that God is perfect, that things are perfectly unfolding. Nothing that has unfolded up to now was some sort of like you went off track and now you got all this ground to make up. It's like the present moment is like, recognizing that is like the success. It's like, and guess what? Did you just recognize it right now? We just did it. This is not a hard thing. It's a process of just like bringing yourself back to that, where in the past, you just start to drift into these complaining, and it's like, oh, why is that? What is wrong with people? Why are they so fucking just brainwashed, by anything on TV? It's like, oh, they could tell you to put on a clown outfit, and a third of the population would be like, well, it's normal to do this. Why are you being so selfish and not dressing like a clown like me and everybody else? Don't you realize, how selfish you're? It's like, to me, imposing, and then I can get off on this tangent too, because we're all in this thing together. We're all unfolding these different things as a collective. Ultimately it's going on within. But the more that we're awake to that, and conscious of like, oh, was I just like attacking that person in my mind? Why was I? What? Why? Why am I doing that? When I could just be like, oh, that's just a human being. That's just a cat. That's just a dog. That's just, why am I just like I can focus on like a cat and be like, oh, I trust you implicitly. Meanwhile, it's like, this is some random person is just like, and you're just having these danger and attack. I get that way. It's like most of the times if I talk to some like dude for the first time, I'm thinking about ways to attack him. It's just like, and people would not know that. That's what I'm thinking about. I don't make it obvious or anything, but that's because I've been through some shit. I've been around some fucking sketchy situations. Been fortunate in a lot of different ways, but that kind of stuff is just, having a family. It's like you want to protect people from dangers, and sometimes those dangers take the form of people around you that might need their ass whooped. And I don't feel like I feel like, you start drifting into like a lot of animal behaviors like that. Someone has these chickens, you can learn a lot from watching a flock of birds just govern themselves, and, how they, boom, they just check this shit like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's like they go gladiator on each other. I didn't realize this would be such a big deal, but I put some chickens with the other flock. Man, that was a beat down. One of the birds had half this fucking head just like feathers ripped out, was bleeding. They would have probably murdered each other, if I would have left them in there. But that was the drama. And even with the turkeys, they were all getting along. I had 3 turkeys last season, and they were raised together from like the same, whatever you call a baby chicken or turkey, and they got along really good. 2 of them were like white feathered, and then one was like, I don't know what you call it, like black and kind of brownish or whatever. Well, then out of nowhere, just like a light switch went off, and these 2 turkeys were just fighting for nonstop. They tried to drown each other in like, I got this little kiddie pool in their habitat or whatever, and turkeys have this like little noodly thing on the tip of their beak, and like in part of their fighting, they would get a hold of that like a worm and just like drag their heads down to the ground, and the one was taking a hold of that and like trying to drown the other turkey with it. This is like fucking intense. And so I'd get in the mix and then try to break them up, and you'd have to just check them like just the same way. But like, anyway, off this tangent, it's important to, whenever you start getting on these tangents, that's reflective of a inner tangent that is possible throughout the present moment. You just get something just triggers you, and you just go down these little trails of thought, that just, and they can be happy trails of thought. They don't always have to be suffering and serious and miserable all the time. Part of, I feel like, renewing your mind is letting go of a lot of the seriousness, because I feel like that's just like a sign of fear. It's like most of the time, like, the seriousness comes from like, this is a serious life and death situation, Mike. This is the time to fucking just lock in. This is serious business. We're going to war. It's just this attitude all the time. And we could just be talking about like, I don't know, like a business thing or something. It's like not every day is a battle. It's like you try to experience more states of like, I don't know, peace or bliss or flow, or do something, but like, I try to spend most of the day in those kinds of states, connecting with God, and at the same time realizing, how many times throughout the day, oh, am I just complaining for it's like, oh, my back, oh, this is starting to hurt. Now I'm just spinning the present moment, bitching about, oh, this is achy, this is sore, oh, when you would think either one impresses the subconscious mind, which then reflects in your body as well. You can put that to the test yourself by starting to change how you're talking about yourself. Oh, Mike, I'm so this, I'm so that, and I'm so unattractive, and oh, people think I'm weird looking, or it's like, why do you think that about you? No one, it's impossible to know what people are thinking. It's like, I feel like I've been very direct at times to people, very simple. Like, okay, I feel like a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old gets this, what I'm saying. I want you to take this cup, take it to the kitchen, put it in the sink, wash it, put it and put it up. And then, simple. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, I painted that cup for you. It's like, what? How did you hear paint it? And I can guarantee I didn't say it, but somehow you heard that. Is this a Yanny Laurel situation? Is this a green dress or whatever? Are we not speaking English? It's like, what's going on here? Are you on drugs? It's all these kinds of things. But it's like reminding yourself. It's like, okay, well, here's the situation. I'm really focusing on what I don't like about maybe that person. Maybe this person is not following simple instructions, simple things. Maybe I'm telling myself, I'm so misunderstood. Oh, people just don't get me. And like in that, it's like, okay, consciously, if you're aware how important your thoughts are in impressing the subconscious mind, which then reflects out into, this terrain of space, back to you and through your perception, and you're dealing with these situations, doesn't it seem crazy to constantly just be experiencing a bad reflection? When you can consciously choose, hey, I can I can scrap that idea, that limiting belief, that limiting assumption, that complaint. I can replace that with, just ask God what to think. It's like, what's a better thing to think? It's like, I don't understand what being grateful even is. Is grateful, and that's another really important concept, is like your mind wants to define it and put it in a box. And it's like, well, this is gratitude, and this is exactly what it means, and thought. And it's like, I feel like that's like an error, because gratitude is part of your identity. It's like, that's who you are. So it's like not something that you need to like think about or define. It's more of like an energy, and there's only really one energy. So it's like, you already know what complaining is and experiencing the reflection of that. So, by kind of using reverse engineering on it, okay, it's like, okay, well, I don't necessarily even know, because then it's like, well, let's just do the opposite. Maybe, or maybe it's a better time to just let the whole thing go and be open for infinite intelligence to, in this present moment, hey, what does gratitude even feel like right now? I'm trying to define it. I'm trying to logically think about it. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it, which is obviously creating a problem. So what can I see? Show me what's a better way. And just be open to ask, believe, and receive. So start putting yourself in that end state where you have help and you have guidance, because you do. And the more that you believe that you do, the more apparent and obvious it starts to become. And then you start being drawn to different people that can maybe clarify things for you. Not to say that, put people on a pedestal, but realize that we're all connected. We're all reflecting, different things back to each other. And the people that are consciously choosing to wake up and, consciously use their minds and, work on this dynamic relationship between you and your creator, I believe just manifesting heaven, the inner world to the outer world, and realizing that God's already done it. It's like, you're already there. It's about just realizing, because otherwise you spend the present moment just, where is it? Oh, I must have to spend, 50 linear years just in a state of waiting, just being gradually decayed into death and decay and sickness and, worst case scenarios and everything else. Or maybe God is in the present moment, and you can connect with that energy and get out of that state of waiting and complaining and start focusing on things to be grateful for. That, God is your source for gratitude. God is the source for joy and love and abundance and prosperity and health and all these things. There's only one thing going on. So it's like, the more that you strengthen that connection, it doesn't really matter. If you're spending the present moment seeking that, building that, doing that, creating that in the present moment, versus unconsciously drifting into waiting, complaining, suffering, fear, worst case scenario, just all these sporadic, just unconscious things. It's like knowing that your thoughts have a big impact on your perception and the way things are coordinated and the way things are drawn to you. And it's like, it becomes crazy to be like, let me just have these unconscious limiting thoughts that I don't really want to happen to me. And it's like, well, you can keep holding on to those, or you can start to let those go and start to be open to gratitude. Be taught what gratitude is. We're all learning. I fucking know. I spend most of the time, not really in states of gratitude. I'm working on developing those more and more so. Where I get into that kind of flow states is more of like no mind. It's not really thinking about anything, just being really in the here and now. And a lot of that's like you experience playing like an instrument, playing the guitars, like really not a lot of thought about anything other than just being really keyed into like the present moment, what's going on, and not having a lot of thought. So I'm like moving more into a direction as I'm progressing through things of like, okay, now I kind of am able to have a lot of like periods of the day just in flow states and no thought and just rest and, catching these thoughts and letting them go. And it's like, do I just want to stay in this kind of like neutral, just fending off these things? Or am I going to start maybe really trying to actively, knowing that gratitude is the ultimate reception and the ultimate receiving state? It's like, well, then how can I really gear towards that then, instead of unconsciously just, there's an annoying thought, there's a fearful thing, there's some minor, annoyance. instead of that experience throughout the present moment, having more, oh, it's a really nice day. Oh, so that's a nice, that lined up perfectly at work. Oh, there's really, I hit every green light. All these things that, it's like you're grateful for, that you actually appreciate. The more you focus on them, the more those become more and more your focus, and, ultimately, even if the physical thing isn't happening in the present moment, what is your inner world doing? Really, that's what you're doing, is the inner world. That's where you're spending 99% of things in your mind for the most part, unless you're consciously like, oh yeah, I'm here in creation, I'm here moving things around, I'm communicating something to someone, I'm extending something, I'm trying to like give out energy, positive energy, love energy, the only energy that there is, because so much of fear is just the lack of it, so it's like the fix is just put love in the situation. But, this is kind of the best I've come up with at the present moment doing this stream, but, hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully, at least reminds you to maybe focus on a little gratitude and, increase your vibe a little bit, so you're not just spending the present moment, trying to stay in the present, but complaining and drifting into these undesirable thoughts and undesirable feelings and emotions and energy. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to suppress these things, and you got to face your shadow and all this shit. But it's like, okay, but dwelling in it, is that dwelling in it all day? You constantly trying to fix yourself. It's like, I feel like that's like taking, God says you're a masterpiece. It's like, why don't you believe that? It's like, does a masterpiece constantly just, are you really believing you're a masterpiece? So it's like living in the end. It's like, you need to be thinking from like, God created me as a masterpiece, not some broken toy that constantly needs fucked with and fixed. It's like that's part of like the cursed identity. And so really realizing those things are things to be grateful for. Hey, there's like a nugget of optimism, a nugget of faith, a nugget of and you can start to like focus your attention on that, to draw your attention right back to, was I just complaining? Was I drifting into tangents? Was I just going all over the place? Or am I disciplining my mind to be in alignment with who you are in Christ, your new identity? Which is the way kind of looking at it, it's like, yeah, it's new, but everything has been a spiritual world up until now anyway. So it's like part of like the unfolding realization of that is like realizing how much your thoughts played a role in the curses and the fucking shit going wrong, and not understanding God's will and the nature of love. And so really focusing your attention on what is God's will? What does that even really mean? Is, the old mindset, the complainer, the accuser, the bitching, whining, thinks that, God's will is constant punishment and torment and suffering. Well, God teaches through pain and abasing and sacrifice and torment, and it's like, really, love does that? It's like, or maybe you're listening to the wrong guide. So constantly, in the present moment, when you drift off, realize, hey, the problem and the solution is happening in the present moment. You're not fucked. Nothing bad is really going on. You drifted off, and you can drift back. And the more that you're consciously doing that, and it's like, hey, where I unconsciously was just like drifted off in that, can I choose to think a different way? Ask God how to do that. Ask the Holy Spirit, get into the Bible to learn, some of the things that Jesus and techniques that Jesus taught. You don't have to figure it out. It's easily been laid out. You can go on the internet right now. You're already on the internet. It's like get on YouTube or Bitchute or Rumble or any of these places. What did Jesus say about and don't listen to people, but it's like it's already it's like, what's the Bible verse that explicitly says it? It's like, so you can start to get a lot of that shit that snaps you out of these mental programs that are these psyops and this brainwashing, which is like one of the greatest ironies is like, you get brought up in like American culture, like I got brought up in, and they put like the scientific atheism on this pedestal, and it's like, it's so ironic that shit was so wrong, and like and I believed all of it at one point. It's like that's what like that bothers me sometimes. Is like there's people like, oh, you're just a brainwashed religious person. It's like, dude, I I still get triggered by religious people now. It's like, are you serious? It's like, but I came to a lot of this shit through science, quantum science, and then it was like into Tom Campbell's big toe theory, which is like a unified field theory. It's like really got me down this simulation, this quantum shit. And then the law of attraction, and it's like all starts to go together. And then it's like, oh fuck, this shit's even in the Bible. That's like they already. This isn't something new. It's like then it's like, oh, all the shit that they're saying here, Jesus was already saying. So it's like maybe he knew something that was just like obvious to him. Like it was just like, and at the same time, then you start going through all of this shit, and then you start realizing how much you were lied to about everything, how much the stuff is just like inverted and upside down and backwards from the world, and it's just like, fuck, all this shit is just bullshit. I mean, this is not, you can't trust any of this shit. And so. But that's just me, again, going on this tangent. But like I said, I think I'm a balance. Appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Hopefully you can bring a little gratitude to the present moment. I just lost my train of thought again. But, it's time for me to time to bounce. But, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all social networking things. I appreciate your spiritual support and your physical support. Thank you for that. Until the next now, God bless.